My so-called best friend keeps messaging my husband every single day. It's starting to make me feel uncomfortable and suspicious. I never thought I would find myself in this situation, but here we are. For context, I've been friends with Sarah, 30F, for a few years. We've been through a lot together, and I considered her one of my closest friends. However, recently, something happened that I couldn't ignore. Over the past few months, Sarah has gotten close with my husband, and I was pretty much okay with us all hiking and eating out together. She came to our wedding, etc. However, all hours of the day, Sarah has been sending my husband, 28M, a ton of messages and memes. At first, I didn't think much of it. My husband and I are both friendly people, and I know Sarah has a good sense of humor. But the frequency and nature of the messages started to make me uncomfortable. They weren't just occasional funny memes. It felt like she was constantly reaching out to him. I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe I was overreacting, but the feeling persisted. I eventually talked to my husband about it, and while he assured me there was nothing going on, he got defensive, saying nothing is going on. I allowed them to still hang out, and I tried my hardest to not seem crazy, but yes, I feel crazy. So, I decided to finally talk to Sarah. I approached her calmly and explained how her constant messaging made me feel uncomfortable. I used I statements to avoid sounding accusatory and tried to be as understanding as possible. Instead of understanding or apologizing, she got defensive. She insisted that it was harmless and that I was being ridiculous. The conversation didn't go well, and shortly after, she blocked me on all social media. I was shocked and hurt. I never wanted to end our friendship over this, but I felt disrespected and ignored. I'm feeling a mix of emotions right now. On one hand, I feel justified in setting boundaries and protecting my marriage. On the other hand, I'm mourning the loss of a longtime friend. Has anyone else experienced something similar? How did you handle it? Any advice or perspective would be greatly appreciated. Edit 1. A good friend of mine checked his social media and Sarah's. Looks like Sarah blocked my husband as well. Phew. Edit 2. My husband and I agreed to marital counseling. If this fails, I'm divorcing him. Pregnant or not. Relevant comments. Did her husband let her read the messages? Hi. Yes, he did let me read them. However, I am sad that it had to come down to this. I asked him many times to stop replying to her memes because she'll keep on sending stuff. He constantly told me I was overreacting with their friendship and nothing was going on. I believed him for a while. However, I was just sick of her sending him memes and messages at all hours of the day. OP, when told the way they reacted, is suspicious. I was surprised too. I let them hang out because it was mostly in a group setting, and I know she valued her friendship with my husband. However, her friendship with mine started to grow stale. She barely messaged me, only for planning things. With my husband, it was memes, sharing her problems, and I got mad that my husband overshared some things to her that were going on between us. That's when I felt uncomfortable. When told to check his phone. Thanks for your input. I will absolutely check his phone again today, as her blocking me is fresh and happened today at 8 a.m. You know, I gave him an opportunity to be honest with me and tell me if he had any feelings for her. He denied and said no to all of it. After I got pregnant, he showed major green flags and let me stay at home, and he ended up canceling his gym membership and prioritized my pregnancy. Our intimacy never stopped, and he never changed his passwords. He stopped hanging out with her physically. Her messages and memes did not stop even after he stopped hanging out with her. I still am convinced it was an emotional affair, and sometimes I wonder if he even knew it was an emotional affair. Update 1. I wanted to share an update with you all about how my talk with my husband went, and I took your advice into consideration to have a discussion with him. When he got off work, he called me, and we immediately didn't have a good start to the conversation. My husband thinks I'm jealous because he said it's not infidelity for her to send him memes and messages once in a while. He said he never saw Sarah in that light and that he just really liked her just as a friend, and he's told me that for many months, and he's just sick of me accusing him of infidelity when he works hard for me to be a stay-at-home mom. He never flirted with Sarah. He also said he's incredibly happy that I'm pregnant, and he wants to start a family, so I've been a priority and not Sarah. However, he mentioned that he and his brother had grown somewhat distant from Sarah in the past because she was immature and has blocked many people throughout their friendship that I wasn't aware of. She's not good at taking criticism and has fought with other players when they went paintballing or at the gym, and this is something Sarah likes to do, is brag about blocking people. Hence why she blocked me. My husband mentioned other friends brought up issues in the past. Sarah simply blocked them. It's something Sarah simply does. Anyway, when he got home, we hardly spoke, and there was a lot of awkwardness. I signed myself up for therapy because he didn't want marital counseling yet. At night, we finally managed to talk some more, and I asked my husband if they blocked each other. He told me he hasn't checked but hasn't received anything from Sarah all day. I told him to block her. However, he doesn't believe in blocking anyone because he thinks it's immature and childish. He wants Sarah and me to salvage the friendship, and he wants to reach out to her so we can have a chance to talk about the fallout. His response about why he's so defensive about the friendship is not because of infidelity, but because he's disappointed that I ended a friendship that I held onto for so long and that Sarah held me in high regard. He thinks sending memes isn't any proof of cheating, and he never flirted with her. He said he would heart her memes. He apologized for oversharing with her, and he thought she was just offering a shoulder to cry on. He said he's mainly sad about losing the other guy friends that Sarah brought to the table. They were all gamers and went to the gym together, and he's going to miss that if Sarah and I don't reconcile the friendship. My husband is also sad about all the drama this has caused and how Sarah's guy friends are going to badmouth me because I confronted her. He told me it's too soon for marital counseling for him. I didn't want to force that upon him. Right now, I feel like I'm in limbo and don't have the strength to just get up and leave him if that's the answer you're looking for. I will say I'm going to try to look at his phone myself when I have the energy, probably today, and confirm if anything is going on. It's easier said than done. A part of me believes him and that he doesn't like her, but their friendship still makes me feel weird. I didn't check his phone because I was going through a huge energy drain, and it wasn't good for my baby. I prioritized my well-being and kept things low-key. It was also terrifying for me, and I guess I'm not strong enough for that just yet. I probably will today now that my husband and I talked more. Relevant comments. OP explains their history. Hi there, thank you. Sarah was my friend first, and we've been friends for many years. Even when I was married to my husband, she's been my friend. She didn't have an interest with my husband until they started getting to know each other better over video games, /tabletop games, /gym, /paintballing. I don't have some of the same interests as my husband, and they started talking more about the games and hobbies. We started hanging out more, but sometimes I didn't want to be involved in their hobbies, and they went to the gym with a group of people, and I was okay with it for a while. But then she started to come around more and message my husband separately, and her friendship and I became stale. We hardly talked anymore, and I agree with you. She doesn't have boundaries. For all our friendship, she can't keep a relationship, and she ends up blocking every single one. The majority of her friends, not mine, are single guy friends that are attracted to her. This never bothered me, but she started to add my husband in that group of those single guy friends, and that didn't sit right with me because my husband and I are married and she's living more of a bachelorette lifestyle. OP explains what more about the texts. Honestly, it's not just memes. I wish it was just memes. She messages him about her problems and daily routines, makes plans with him, and doesn't speak to me at all. On top of that, she spams him with memes all hours of the day, including at night and in the crack of dawn. It's fudging annoying, and I'm tired of seeing her stupid Instagram username on his notifications. Fudge her. I'm glad she's out of my life. OP, when told her friend is a man hoarder. I really believe that this the closest, best explanation and observation of my friend Sarah. She has a whole circle of single guy friends that she swears are platonic, but she treats them like they're her shoulders to cry on. I never cared about it, but once she started to get close to my husband, I couldn't handle it and I started to question it for months. She blew up when I carefully communicated with her that I don't like her having access to my husband. She had a meltdown, and it made me second-guess how sincere our friendship truly was. Update 2. After our last conversation, my husband and I had a very tense few days. He was clearly upset about everything that had happened with Sarah, but he didn't bring it up again. I was on edge, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Well, it dropped, and it was a big one. Yesterday, I was cleaning up around the house and decided to check my husband's phone, like I mentioned I might. I was nervous as hell, but I knew I had to do it for my own peace of mind. I scrolled through his messages, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. No text from Sarah, no weird apps or hidden folders. I was about to put the phone down when a new message popped up from an unknown number. It was from Sarah. The message was short, just a simple, "Hey, we need to talk. Can you meet me tonight?" My stomach dropped. I took a screenshot and saved it on my phone before calmly putting his phone back where I found it. I didn't want to react immediately. I needed to think. But the thought of them meeting up without my knowledge was driving me insane. Later that night, I brought it up to my husband. I showed him the screenshot and asked him what it was about. To my surprise, he didn't get defensive this time. Instead, he looked shocked and swore up and down that he hadn't spoken to Sarah since she blocked both of us. He didn't even have her new number saved. He said he wasn't planning on meeting her and hadn't responded to the message. But here's the kicker. He admitted that he'd been feeling guilty for how things ended with Sarah and had been thinking about reaching out to her just to clear the air. He hadn't done it yet, but the thought had crossed his mind. Apparently, she beat him to it. At this point, I was more confused than ever. Why was Sarah reaching out after all of this? And why now? My husband promised he wouldn't meet her without telling me first, but the fact that he was even considering it felt like a betrayal. We spent the rest of the night in separate rooms, barely speaking. I couldn't sleep, just kept replaying everything in my head. This morning, I decided to send Sarah a text from my own phone, asking her why she wanted to meet with my husband. I wasn't expecting a response, but she replied almost immediately. Her message was cryptic. "There are things you don't know. Meet me alone, and I'll explain everything." Now I'm sitting here, staring at my phone, trying to figure out what the hell is going on. My instincts are telling me not to meet her, but a part of me is desperate for answers. I feel like I'm stuck in a nightmare that I can't wake up from. My husband is acting weird. Sarah is back from the dead, and I'm questioning everything. I honestly don't know what to do next. Should I meet her? Should I just block her and move on? I feel like I'm standing at the edge of a cliff, and I'm terrified of what happens if I take the next step. Relevant comments when asked if she thinks Sarah is bluffing honestly? I wouldn't put it past her. She's always been dramatic, but this feels different. The way she worded that text, it's like she knows something I don't, and that scares me. I want to believe it's just another one of her mind games, but what if it's not? What if there's something I've missed this whole time? When advised to talk to her husband first before meeting Sarah, you're right. I should talk to him again before making any rash decisions. But part of me is afraid of what I might find out. What if there's something he hasn't told me? What if I'm walking into something even worse? I'm trying to stay calm, but this whole situation is just so overwhelming. When asked if she thinks the marriage can survive this honestly, I don't know. I want to believe we can get through this, but I feel like so much damage has been done already. If there's more to this story that I don't know, I'm not sure if I'll be able to move past it. It's like I'm standing on a bridge, and I'm not sure if it's going to hold or collapse under me. Update 3. So, I decided to go ahead and meet Sarah. I know it sounds insane, but I needed to get to the bottom of this once and for all. My husband and I talked again before I left, and I told him straight up that I was meeting her. He didn't try to stop me, but he looked uneasy about the whole thing. He said he trusted me to handle it, but I could tell he was just as on edge as I was. I agreed to meet Sarah at a coffee shop on the other side of town, a place we used to go to when we were still close. When I arrived, my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. I spotted her immediately. She was sitting in a corner booth, staring out the window like she hadn't just turned my life upside down. As soon as I sat down, Sarah got right to the point. No small talk, no pleasantries, just straight into it. "Listen," she said, leaning in close. "I'm not here to cause trouble, but there's something you need to know. Your husband isn't the person you think he is." My stomach dropped. I asked her what she meant, trying to keep my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. She started talking about things I never expected, stories about my husband that didn't match up with the man I know. She told me about a night months ago when they'd both been at a mutual friend's party. According to her, after I left early, my husband had stayed behind. She claimed he'd gotten drunk and had been way too flirty with her. She swore up and down that nothing physical had happened, but the way she described it made it sound like an emotional affair had been brewing for a lot longer than I thought. Sarah said she started messaging him more after that night, not because she was interested in him, but because she was trying to figure out what his intentions were. I was furious, but I kept my cool. I asked her why she hadn't told me any of this sooner, why she'd kept it to herself until now. Her answer? She didn't want to lose me as a friend, and she figured my husband was just going through something and would snap out of it. But when I confronted her, she felt cornered and panicked, which is why she blocked me. She claimed she was trying to protect me by keeping her distance, but I could tell she was lying to herself as much as she was lying to me. I couldn't listen to any more of her excuses. I asked her straight up if she had feelings for my husband, and she didn't even deny it. She said she was confused and didn't know what she wanted, but that she was never planning on acting on it. She tried to paint herself as the victim in all of this, but I wasn't buying it. At that point, I'd had enough. I stood up, told her I didn't care what she thought her intentions were, and that I never wanted to see or hear from her again. I left the coffee shop without looking back. When I got home, my husband was waiting for me. I was still so angry that I could barely look at him. I told him everything Sarah had said, and for the first time, I saw real fear in his eyes. He swore he didn't remember the night she was talking about, that he might have been drunk but nothing happened, that Sarah was twisting things to make herself seem more important than she was. He looked like he was about to cry, and I didn't know if I should believe him or not. Part of me wanted to, but the other part of me was so exhausted from all of this that I didn't even have the energy to argue. I told him I needed some space, and he agreed to stay with a friend for a few days while I figured things out. Now, I'm sitting here in an empty house, feeling like my whole world just crumbled around me. I don't know what's going to happen next. I'm not sure if I can trust anything either of them said. All I know is that I can't keep living like this, constantly questioning everything and everyone. Maybe some time apart will help me see things more clearly, or maybe it'll just confirm what I've been afraid of all along, that my marriage was built on shaky ground, and it's finally starting to collapse. Right now, I'm just trying to take it one day at a time. I haven't made any decisions yet, but I know I can't keep ignoring this. I need to figure out what's real and what's not, even if it means facing some hard truths about my husband and my so-called friend. I'll update you all when I have more clarity, but for now, I'm just trying to survive this mess. Relevant comments when asked how she feels about her husband now. I honestly don't know. Part of me wants to believe him, that he was just drunk and doesn't remember what happened. But another part of me wonders if he's hiding something, or if he's even been honest with himself about his feelings. It's so confusing, and I feel like I'm constantly second-guessing everything. I'm angry, but I'm also hurt and scared. I thought I knew him, but now I'm not so sure. When asked what her next steps are right now, I'm focusing on taking care of myself and the baby. I need to figure out what's best for us, whether that means trying to work things out with my husband or moving on without him. I'm not making any decisions until I feel more stable, but I'm definitely keeping my options open. I'm also considering seeing a therapist on my own to help me process everything that's happened. When asked if she plans to divorce her husband, I'm not ruling it out, but I'm also not ready to make that call just yet. I need more time to think and to see how my husband handles this situation. If I find out he's been lying to me, or that there's more to the story, then yeah, divorce might be on the table. But for now, I'm trying to keep an open mind and give him a chance to prove himself. Update for after my husband moved out to stay with a friend. I thought I'd have some time to clear my head, but instead, everything has gotten even more chaotic. First off, I decided to follow through with getting some therapy, and I'm really glad I did. My therapist has been helping me unpack all the feelings I've been bottling up, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I was starting to get a grip on things. She advised me to focus on what I can control and to set boundaries with both my husband and anyone else involved in this mess. So, with that in mind, I decided to do something I hadn't really considered before. I reached out to one of Sarah's guy friends. Let's call him Mike. Mike and I had always been friendly, and he's one of the guys my husband used to game and hang out with. I figured if anyone knew what was really going on with Sarah, it would be him. Plus, I just wanted to get another perspective, someone who wasn't my husband or Sarah, someone who might have seen things from a different angle. I met up with Mike for coffee, and let me tell you, what he had to say blew my mind. Mike told me that he'd noticed Sarah acting weird for a while now, especially around my husband. He said that she had a pattern of getting overly attached to her male friends, especially the ones in relationships. According to Mike, Sarah was the type who liked the attention but never really wanted to commit to anything. He said she was always the girl who'd flirt just enough to keep guys interested, but would back off the moment things got serious. What's more, Mike admitted that he'd confronted Sarah about her behavior a few weeks ago. He told her flat out that she was crossing a line with my husband and needed to back off, but Sarah got defensive and accused him of being jealous. She even blocked him for a few days before unblocking him like nothing happened. Classic Sarah, apparently. Here's the kicker, though. Mike also said that Sarah had been spreading rumors among their friend group about me and my husband's relationship. She'd been telling people that we were on the rocks, that my husband was unhappy, and that I was being paranoid and controlling. Mike said he didn't believe her, but some of the other guys might have, and that's why they've been distant lately. They think I'm the problem, not her. After hearing all of this, I was fuming. Not only had Sarah been playing games with my marriage, but she'd also been actively trying to turn people against me. It felt like a betrayal on a whole new level. I thanked Mike for being honest with me and told him I was done with Sarah for good. He said he understood and that he'd been distancing himself from her, too, because of all the drama. When I got home, I was ready to confront my husband again. But before I could even pick up the phone, I got a text from him, well, more like a novel. He apologized for everything, said he'd been doing a lot of thinking, and admitted that he hadn't been as honest with me as he should have been. He confessed that he'd enjoyed the attention from Sarah, that it felt good to have someone who seemed to understand him without all the pressure of our marriage. But he swore that it never went beyond that, and that he'd never had feelings for her the way she apparently had for him. He also admitted that he'd heard the rumors Sarah was spreading and had been too ashamed to tell me. He didn't want to hurt me more, and he was worried that I'd see him as weak for not standing up to her sooner. He said he was ready to go to counseling now, to work on things with me, and to rebuild the trust that had been broken. I should have felt relieved, but instead, I felt empty. I realized that no matter how much I wanted to believe him, I couldn't shake the feeling that our marriage had been damaged in a way that might not be fixable. The fact that he'd even entertained Sarah's advances, that he'd let her get so close, made me question everything about our relationship. I texted him back, telling him we could try counseling, but that I needed more time to think. I told him I wasn't ready to forgive him yet, and that I still felt betrayed by how he'd handled everything. He agreed to give me space, but said he'd be there whenever I was ready to talk more. So now, I'm sitting here, feeling more lost than ever. I don't know if I can ever fully trust him again, or if I even want to try. But I also don't know if I'm ready to give up on our marriage just yet. It's like I'm stuck in this awful limbo, not sure which way to turn. And as for Sarah, I'm done. She's out of my life for good, and I don't care what happens to her or what she thinks of me.